Welcome to the P.U.S.H podcast, where we explore ideas that inspire and empower.
Three children are dead. Cora, 5 years old. Dawson, 3 years old. Callan, 8 months old. Before we talk about Lindsay Clancy, before postpartum psychosis, before psychiatric medication, before suicide, before murder, before manslaughter, before we even talk about what this jury is about to decide, I need you to hear their names. Because after 21 days of testimony, after dozens upon dozens of witnesses, after psychologists, psychiatrists, family members, experts for the defense, experts for the prosecution, there's something we cannot allow to happen. We cannot allow 3 children who lost their lives to become supporting characters in the story of the person who killed them. Not here. Not now. America is debating Lindsay Clancy. Was she psychotic? Was she criminally responsible? Was she suicidal? Did medication contribute? Did the medical system fail her? Those are legitimate questions. But I've got another question. What about Cora? What about Dawson? What about Callan? Mental illness deserves serious discussion. But compassion for mental illness cannot require us to develop amnesia about its victims. These children are dead. Don't make them footnotes. Here's where the case stands now. Lindsay Clancy has admitted to killing her children. The dispute isn't primarily over who did it. The dispute is over her criminal responsibility. Her defense says she was suffering from postpartum psychosis and experienced a command hallucination telling her to unalive her children. Prosecutors say she was mentally ill, but wasn't psychotic to the point that she couldn't understand what she was doing or control her actions. Now there's another major development. The judge has ruled that the jury will be also allowed to consider manslaughter as a lesser offense. So this isn't simply guilty or not guilty. The jury has multiple potential paths, and ultimately they have to decide which version of Lindsay Clancy's mental state the evidence actually supports. One of the final witnesses for the prosecution was a forensic psychiatrist, Dr. Gregory Sathoff. Hopefully I'm saying his name correctly. And his testimony matters. He questioned Lindsay's claim that a voice commanded her to kill the children. Think about the questions prosecutors raised. Did this alleged voice tell her where to kill them? No. Did it tell her how? No. What to use? No. What order? No. Yet, according to Sathoff's testimony, she was able to carry out a sequence of actions without those instructions. His conclusion: she demonstrated control. The defense attacked that conclusion. They questioned his experience specifically with postpartum psychosis. They pointed out that Lindsay had sought help, that she had contacted the suicide hotline, that she had expressed suicidal thoughts, that she had expressed fears about harming her children. And even Sathhoff acknowledged that describing what Lindsay had been experiencing too simplistically could minimize the seriousness of her mental health deterioration. That's important, because this case is definitely not simple. It's pretty complicated. But that doesn't mean we stop asking the hard questions. Here's the question the trial forces us to confront. Where does explanation and excuse begin? Because understanding why somebody committed an unimaginable act doesn't bring the victims back. Mental illness may help us understand someone's behavior. Mental illness may dramatically affect criminal responsibility. That's why we have courts. That's why we have experts. That's why there's a jury. But understanding something doesn't mean we have to stop grieving what's happening. Explanation and accountability are not automatically enemies. Now let me remove myself from the courtroom for a second, because I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a prosecutor. I'm not Lindsay Clancy's attorney. I'm not sitting on that jury. But what I am is a father. And that's the lens I cannot turn off. I look into my own personal children's eyes, and I see human beings who trust me completely. Think about what that means. Your child doesn't understand your bills. They don't understand your relationship problems. They don't understand what's happening at work. They don't understand your depression. They don't understand your anxiety. They don't understand whatever battle you're fighting internally. They know one thing. That's mommy. That's daddy. And in their little minds, those words are supposed to mean I'm safe. Man. That's the part of this case that destroys me. Parents, we're bigger than our children. We're stronger than them. We determine where they live, what they eat, where they sleep, who they're hanging out around. A 5-year-old has almost no ability to protect themselves from an adult. An 8-month-old, none. Which means parenthood gives us incredible power and incredible responsibility. Your child should never have to protect themselves from the person they believe is their protector. I'll say that again. Your child should never have to protect themselves from the person they believe is their protector. I've experienced pressure. I've gone through trials. I've gone through tribulations. And I know what it means to navigate this country as a black man while carrying responsibility, expectations, and people depending on you. Life can beat you down. I understand that. But my children did not create my problems. They didn't create my trauma. They didn't create my financial pressures. They didn't create my relationship problems. They didn't create whatever darkness I may be fighting internally. So my pain cannot become their death sentence. Listen carefully. Your pain is not your child's death sentence. If your mind reaches the point where you're afraid you might hurt yourself or your children, we are no longer talking about having a bad day. That's an emergency. Call somebody. Wake somebody up. Tell your spouse, tell your mother, tell your father. Call 988. Go to an emergency room. Get yourself physically separated from the children if necessary. And say the sentence, I'm scared of what I might do. There is no shame in saying that, because at that moment, there are two objectives: keep you alive and keep those children alive. I know some people are going to hear my position and say, Judah, you don't understand postpartum psychosis. Don't confuse accountability with ignorance. Postpartum psychosis is real. Psychiatric illness is real. Hallucinations are real. Delusions are real. Suicidal ideation is real. And when somebody is experiencing those things, we need to take them seriously. Not tomorrow, not next week, right now. Because another disturbing part of this case is that Lindsay reportedly sought mental health treatment before these killings. She reportedly expressed suicidal thoughts. She reportedly expressed fear about harming her children. So regardless of what this jury ultimately decides about criminal responsibility, there is another conversation America needs to have. How do we recognize the emergency before it becomes a tragedy? Mental health intervention shouldn't begin after the funeral. It shouldn't begin in the courtroom. It shouldn't begin when CNN shows up. It shouldn't begin when TikTok starts debating who's guilty. Prevention happens before the basement, before the police, before the ambulance, before the trial, before 3 tiny caskets. When somebody you love tells you something is happening inside my mind and I'm scared, take it seriously, because sometimes that's the difference between she'll probably be okay and we're getting you help right now. It could be somebody's life. Patrick Clancy, their father, Lindsay's then husband. Imagine leaving your home, running errands, and coming back to something that will follow you for the rest of your life. Imagine being a father and realizing all 3 of your children are gone. Cora, Dawson, Callan. As a father, I don't even know how you process that. There's no motivational quote for that. There's no therapy that makes that disappear. There's no Instagram caption that's going to fix it. That man has to wake up every day and continue living. Here's something we don't talk about enough. When one parent experiences a catastrophic mental health crisis, the consequences don't disappear when that crisis ends. Sometimes another parent has to carry it forever. One night, one decision, one catastrophic moment, and another human being wakes up carrying that reality for the rest of their life. That's another reason intervention matters. And this brings me to when And this brings me to where I ultimately stand. America has become addicted to choosing teams. Either Lindsay Clancy is a monster or Lindsay Clancy is completely a victim. Maybe the conversation needs more maturity than that. Because I can believe mental illness deserves compassion and believe children deserve protection. I can believe postpartum psychosis is real and mourn 3 dead children. I can believe someone experiencing a psychotic emergency deserves treatment and still believe society has an obligation to determine accountability. Those positions don't contradict each other. Mental illness deserves compassion. Children deserve protection. Mental illness deserves compassion. Children deserve protection. One does not cancel out the other. Compassion without concern for victims isn't compassion. And accountability without understanding mental illness doesn't solve the underlying problem either. We need both. And please, don't take this story and turn it into women are crazy or mothers can't be trusted. That's lazy, man. And don't turn it into anybody demanding accountability doesn't care about mental health either. That's lazy too. This case should be forced to become a much bigger conversation. Postpartum mental health, suicide prevention, warning signs, family intervention, medical responsibility, criminal responsibility, and protecting children. We don't need another gender war. We need solutions. After weeks of testimony, the witnesses are finished. The experts are finished. The evidence has been presented. Closing arguments are next. And then 12 jurors will ultimately have to decide what the evidence truly means. Murder, a lesser offense such as manslaughter, or was Lindsay Clancy's legally not criminally responsible because of her mental condition? I'm going to follow that verdict closely. But regardless of what appears on that verdict form, there are 3 facts no verdict can change. Cora Clancy, 5 years old. Dawson Clancy, 3 years old. Callan Clancy, 8 months old. Eventually, this trial would disappear from the headlines. Another story would take its place. Social media will find something else to argue about. But their father won't move on from this tragedy. Their family won't. So whatever this jury decides, don't remember these children simply as Lindsay Clancy's kids. They were people. 3 individual human beings whose lives had barely started. Mental illness deserves compassion. Parents in crisis deserve help. Children deserve protection. Victims deserve to be remembered. And accountability deserves a fair examination of the evidence. All of those things can be true at the same time. I'm Lost Judah, aka Dwayne Bright. This is the Push 88. Pursue until something happens. And sometimes The conversations that make us uncomfortable are exactly the conversations we need to push.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the P.U.S.H podcast. We hope you found inspiration and valuable insights to help you on your journey. If you enjoyed the conversation, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and follow us on social media for more updates. Remember, every step forward counts, so keep pushing forward. See you next time.